Greetings, YouTube. I thought it was only appropriate to be wearing a Robo Bobby shirt while discussing the police. So one of the narratives that the right has been pushing during this election season is that when progressives say defund the police, they are actually saying disband the police. And that's not what the majority of progressives are saying. I'm not saying every progressive is not saying that, but I'm speaking for myself and every progressive that I consider to be a reasonable individual. So remember, when we say defund, we're saying taking money from the cops and giving it to people who are more appropriately skilled and experienced at handling things that we currently require the cops to handle. Now, when you need a guy with the gun, you call the cops. It's that simple. Just like when you have a fire, you call the fire department. So the model of the police that I'm endorsing is that the cops become much more like firemen. They're only called when you need a guy with a gun. Because sadly in America, we have trained the police to be hammers. They have one tool in their toolbox, and they are very quick to use it. And that tool is shoot someone. So unless you want to shoot someone, you don't call the cops. Traffic accident, you don't need a guy with a gun. Fill a report out for your insurance because someone broke into your house and stole your TV, you don't need a guy with a gun. Giving out tickets on the highway for speeding, you don't need the guy with the gun. Some autistic person is having a mental breakdown and they're emotionally upset, you don't need a guy with the gun. Got somebody who's suicidal, you don't need a guy with the gun. Noise complaint because it's a party next door, you don't need a guy with the gun. You only need a guy with the gun when there is an act of violence in progress. Or the potential for violence. For example, you actually witness someone breaking into your neighbor's home, call the cops. You need the guy with the gun. Because that individual has already shown propensity for breaking the law and potentially being violent. If you're willing to invade someone's property like that, there's the potential that person could in fact be dangerous. But somebody walking down the street at night, you don't need a guy with a gun. Black guy taking a walk in the park, don't need a guy with a gun. Black guy who's a bird watcher, telling someone, you should put your dog on a leash, don't need a guy with a gun. Black man hunting his yard, holding his cell phone in his hand, don't need a guy with a gun. There's lots of times in America when we send in the hammer and there is no nail. And then a confrontation happens between the cop and the person that isn't a nail until the cop decides that they are a nail. And then they kill somebody. And for all the people out there in America that are saying, well, protests shouldn't turn into riots, even though the research has shown that 95% of protests are in fact peaceful. If you believe that protests shouldn't turn into riots, progressives in America believe that arrests shouldn't turn into murder. Remember that every single person that the cops kill is innocent because they haven't been put into the justice system yet. Some cop has decided that this person is dangerous. There's a difference between that person being dangerous and a cop thinking they're dangerous. So when we say defund the police, we're just saying take the money that the cops currently have, a huge amount of money, and break that up and give it to all the different people that should be handling the problems that the cops are currently being asked to handle. Also, demilitarize the police. Take away their tanks and their armored personnel carriers. Take away their semi-automatic rifles. Take away their shotguns. Leave those things to the SWAT teams. Your average cop doesn't need them. Make sure they got pepper spray, make sure they got a taser, make sure they get a sidearm. That's enough. If you're old school, give them a baton. Outlaw chokeholds. Oh, and by the way, when a kid in school who's like 6 kicks a teacher, you don't call the guy with the gun. You have a principal deal with that. You find out, why is this child kicking an adult? What has the adult done? And what developmental issue is the child grappling with? Because that's your job as a teacher and a principal. And if you can't handle that job, go do something else. Like, I don't want that job. But you know what I'm not going to do? I'm not going to hit the 6-year-old, and I'm not going to call the cops on him. Because I'm a reasonable human being. Also, not a racist, because almost every single time that the cops get called on 6-year-olds because they act out, the kid's black. Because welcome to America. We're racists. So when you hear defund the police, remember, that's exactly what it means. Defund. Moving the money from here to there. But the police stay. Just like the firemen stay. Because there are times you need a fireman, and there are times you need a guy with a gun. Because that most of the time, you don't. We should also probably train the police so they stop being hammers. But that is a more complex problem now, isn't it?